Nobody cared about this until we raised this issue.
Senator, you talked about that your office has gotten a lot of reports. I mean, if someone calls your office and says they saw Bigfoot, that doesn't mean they saw Bigfoot. Why? I mean, you have a sense of responsibility as a running mate, and he certainly does as the candidate to not promote false information, right?
Kaitlan, it's a totally fair point, but nobody's calling my office and saying that they saw Bigfoot. What they're calling and saying is we're seeing migrants kidnap our dogs and cats, and city officials aren't doing anything about it.
In today's video, Kaitlan Collins corners JD Vance on CNN. Kaitlan Collins' side stands out because it's really about one thing: getting clear answers. And if you look at what's happened since, that's still a major issue. On topics like abortion and immigration, people aren't just listening to talking points anymore, they want specifics and consistency. But before we dive into today's video, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one.
Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, who has also been watching that debate. Jake was just talking about what it means when a candidate comes into the spin room after a debate. Is that a sign of a good debate or a bad debate in your view?
Look, I think with President Trump, it's not a sign of either, frankly. I do think that he had a great debate. We can sort of hear the background noise here. But look, I think with President Trump, he had to be sort of talked out of coming to the spin room after the first debate because he really wanted to. And my guess is that he really wanted to come then. He really wanted to come now. This time it worked out. And look, he loves to talk to reporters because he loves to talk to the American people. And I think it's been a consistent theme of his campaign is going anywhere, going into hostile or friendly media, talking to people, answering questions, and trying to make his case. He's going to keep on doing that, whatever the format.
Did tonight go how you wanted it to go in terms of Harris clearly trying to get under his skin, talking about crowd sizes, talking about former officials like John Kelly and Mark Esper and others? I mean, I heard from some Trump advisors who said he took the debate too much. Do you believe that?
No, look, I think that what we saw from Kamala Harris was a lot of platitudes. It was a lot of plans that had no real substance behind them and no real precision behind them. And what is most interesting, and it's really the sort of microcosm of this entire race, is Kamala Harris has a record. Donald Trump has a record. Donald Trump is proud of his record and is running to it. Kamala Harris is running away from her record and pretending that somehow her term as president is going to be radically different from her term as vice president, but she can't actually articulate why. And in fact, to the extent that she articulates it at all, it's by running away from positions that she clearly held just a few years ago or even a few weeks ago.
So why didn't Trump push her more on that? Because that is what we hear from you every day on the campaign trail, is talking about her reversals. He did not really talk about why haven't you done what you're saying you'll do until his closing statement. Do you think he should have done that sooner?
Well, I think he did. I mean, he did it in the closing statement. He also really hammered her on her inconsistencies, right? This is a person who said she wanted to ban fracking. Now she says she doesn't. She wanted to defund the police. Now she said she doesn't. She wanted a secure border. I thought that he really did, actually. On three issues in particular, I think he was very focused on hammering Kamala Harris's inconsistencies with her record, what she says now versus what she said even a few weeks ago in some cases. It was on the border, it's on fracking, and it's on defund the police. That was clearly what he's most focused on. And I think it's not surprising because those are three of the issues that the American people care the most about. I mean, look, this is a person who was to the far left of her own party and now is trying to pretend that she's effectively Donald Trump. My favorite line of the night is when he said she's going to don a MAGA cap and pretend that she agrees with me on everything. I think the American people are too smart to be fooled by Kamala Chameleon acting to be somebody that she's clearly not.
Yeah, she kind of smirked when he said that he was going to send her one. On abortion, though, Trump was asked if he would veto a national abortion ban. You have said that he would. He said that the two of you have not talked about that you weren't talking for him. Have the two of you not talked about that?
One of the biggest issues back then was whether politicians were actually giving clear answers. And if anything, that problem hasn't gone away. Over the past year, we've seen multiple moments where messaging on key issues like abortion and immigration has shifted depending on the audience. And that's exactly what creates confusion for voters. Take abortion. Ever since the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, it's become one of the most defining issues in US politics. But even now, there's still no clear national consensus, and candidates are often vague about what they would actually do federally. That's why pressing for a direct answer, like whether a national ban would be vetoed, really matters. Because voters aren't just looking for positioning anymore, they want to know the actual policy. And on the debate performance itself, there's a bigger pattern. political analysts have pointed out that modern debates aren't just about policy, they're about discipline. When candidates get pulled into side arguments or react emotionally, it can take away from the opportunity to clearly lay out their case. We've seen that play out in multiple recent debates across both parties. There's also the media angle. Trust in political messaging is still shaky, and that's exactly why journalists pushing for specifics is so important. Without that pressure, it's easy for campaigns to stick to broad talking points without ever really answering the hard questions. So even though this clip is from a year ago, the core issue hasn't changed at all. It's still about whether leaders are being clear, consistent, and direct with the public, and whether they can actually back up what they're saying.
So we haven't talked about a veto, but it's clear that Donald Trump doesn't believe in a national abortion ban. He said that his policy is to let the states decide majority of abortion policy in this country. And so I think that really it's a difference of semantics. He thinks it's absurd to even talk about vetoing a piece of legislation that has no chance of being brought. I think it's a totally reasonable point. But again, the main substantive issue is Donald Trump believes that abortion should be a state policy, and Kamala Harris fundamentally thinks that abortion should be funded by taxpayers right up to the moment of birth. And it was interesting that the ABC fact checkers or the moderators who frankly were just helping Kamala Harris in the debate, that they said that no state supports abortion up to the moment of birth. Her own running mate has supported legislation that would remove the requirement that doctors provide life-saving care to babies who survive botched abortion. So I think his point is Democrats are the real radicals on this issue, and whatever cover the moderators provided, the truth is the truth, and their record's pretty out there.
On this question specifically, Trump could have said yes, he would veto a national abortion ban. Why did he not take the opportunity to do so when you know how important abortion is to so many voters?
Well, because I think he believes it's an absurd hypothetical, which of course it is. No national abortion ban is coming before the United States Senate or the United States Congress. If it did, it would maybe get 10% of those bodies to vote for it.
Why did you say before that he would veto it? Why didn't you say that before? You didn't say it was a hypothetical.
Well, Kaitlan, what I said explicitly is that Donald Trump doesn't believe in a national abortion ban. He doesn't. And the question of how far he would go is to me like a semantic thing that doesn't actually make sense. It's an absurd proposition. It's never going to happen. And I think what President Trump is saying is, I don't like to deal in these absurd hypotheticals. It's not going to happen, and he's been clear that he doesn't support it.
Well, I think there may be some women voters who would have liked for him to answer that question. The other thing that he brought up, which I was kind of surprised by, I guess I would say, is he brought up this misleading false claim that you yourself have talked about in recent days about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, abducting people's pets and eating them, which officials there have said is not true. You yourself acknowledged it may be false on Twitter. You still told people to keep spreading it. But Trump just amplified it to tens of millions of people who were watching. Why push something that's not true?
Well, first of all, city officials have not said it's not true. They've said they don't have all the evidence.
They said they have no evidence.
We've heard from a number of constituents on the ground, Kaitlan, who both firsthand and secondhand reports saying this stuff is happening. So they very clearly, meaning the people on the ground dealing with this, think that it is happening. And I think that it's important for journalists to actually get on the ground and uncover this stuff for themselves when you have a lot of people saying, my pets are being abducted, or geese at the city pond are being abducted and slaughtered right in front of us. This is crazy stuff. And again, whether those exact rumors turn out to be mostly true, somewhat true, whatever the case may be, Kaitlan, this town has been ravaged by 20,000 migrants coming in. Healthcare costs are up. Housing costs are up. Communicable diseases like HIV and TB have skyrocketed in this small Ohio town. This is what Kamala Harris's border policies have done. And I think it's interesting, Kate.
Ever since the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, this hasn't been some hypothetical issue. It's been front and center in elections across the country. In 2023 and 2024, voters in multiple states, including conservative ones like Ohio, showed up in huge numbers to protect abortion access. That alone tells you people don't see this as abstract at all. They want clear answers, not "it'll never happen" responses. And politically, that matters a lot. Polling over the past year has consistently shown abortion is one of the top issues for voters, especially women and younger voters. So when a direct question gets sidestepped, it's not just semantics, it's something people actually notice when they head to the ballot box. Then there's the misinformation angle, which has only gotten bigger since this clip. Claims like the one mentioned in the debate don't just stay online, they spread fast and shape how people see entire communities. Studies from groups like the Pew Research Center have shown that misinformation around immigration has increased polarization and mistrust, even when there's little to no verified evidence behind those claims. And that ties into the bigger issue Kaitlan is pushing on: accountability. When public figures amplify claims without evidence, it doesn't just spark debate. It can have real-world consequences, especially for smaller communities that suddenly become the center of national attention. At the end of the day, this debate isn't just about who said what. It's about whether leaders are being clear and responsible with the information they're putting out. Because in today's environment, where everything spreads instantly, that responsibility matters more than ever.
That the media didn't care about the carnage wrought by these policies until we turned it into a meme about cats. And that speaks to the media's failure to care about what's going on in these communities. If we have to meme about it to get the media to care, we're going to keep on doing it because the media should care about what's going on.
I saw you say that. I think the media does care about it. I just read a very lengthy report in the New York Times on it. PBS NewsHour did a whole story on it. But can I ask
by
you,
us talking about it and bringing it up, nobody cared about this until we raised this issue.
Senator, you talked about that your office has gotten a lot of reports. I mean, if someone calls your office and says they saw Bigfoot, that doesn't mean they saw Bigfoot. Why? I mean, you have a sense of responsibility as a running mate, and he certainly does as the candidate to not promote false information, right?
Kaitlan, it's a totally fair point, but nobody's calling my office and saying that they saw Bigfoot. What they're calling and saying is we're seeing migrants kidnap our dogs and cats, and city officials aren't doing anything about it. Now, again, I have a responsibility as a United States Senator. I think the media has a responsibility as an institution that cares about truth to actually take people seriously when they say their lives have been ruined by this migrant crisis. And again, if every single thing that the media says about this story is false, the verifiable facts are that this community has had their lives destroyed by 20,000 migrants coming in and uprooting life.
Again, officials said no credible evidence of the claim. But Senator J.D. Vance, thank you for joining us with
Thanks,
your
Kaitlan.
debate reaction. Jake, back to you.
Over the past year, there's been a huge rise in viral claims about migrants and local communities, but a lot of those stories fall apart when you look for verified evidence. Local officials, independent reporting, and even law enforcement often end up saying there's no proof behind the most extreme claims. And that matters because once something goes viral, the damage is already done. There's also real data that shows what's actually happening. Border encounters did spike in recent years, but they've also fluctuated significantly depending on policy changes and enforcement shifts, not just one administration's decisions. And more importantly, crime data from places like Texas and California has consistently shown that immigrants, including undocumented ones, commit crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens. That doesn't mean communities don't feel pressure, but it does show how different perception can be from reality, and that's where the misinformation piece becomes a big deal. Research from the Pew Research Center shows that repeated exposure to unverified claims, especially on social media, can make people believe something is true even when there's no solid evidence behind it. So when public figures amplify those claims, it doesn't just stay as talk. It shapes how entire groups of people are viewed. Fast forward to today, and we're still seeing the same pattern. Viral clips, memes, and rumors are driving conversations faster than actual reporting can catch up. And that's exactly why pushing for proof and accountability matters more than ever.